I am so happy that you're here. I cannot wait to ask you all the questions. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
You are the infamous Paducah. Everybody, so whenever I went with the California Highway Patrol, the Kyle over there, hold on, sorry. Kyle over there was like, you haven't met Paducah? What in the world? Like, you got to meet him. So here I am. I met you at the Cargo Theft Summit, though, there in California.
Yes.
Yeah.
And listen, Danielle, I take all those compliments humbly. I am honored and blessed to have a good reputation in this industry. I'm still working with all the active cargo theft detectives across the country, and it humbles me to hear that they have such high regard for me.
Yeah, definitely. Well, really, you're kind of like the OG guy who started everything. Am I right on that?
Well, no, before me, there was an older generation. I'm 60 years old now. I was on my team for almost 20 years, but before that, there was a Cargo Cats, which was started in the early 90s. Right, and
Gotcha.
so I came in 2002,
Okay.
and I was on our team until 2021 when I retired. But before me, it was a heck of a team. It was
Yeah.
the actual task force in cargo theft at the time in Los Angeles County, which included the CHP, LAPD, the feds, Customs and Border Patrol, and some of the smaller city agencies that were being affected by cargo theft at the time.
Oh, wow. And back then it was mainly straight theft. Like now I know we're getting a lot more strategic theft and things like that, but back then it was mainly the straight theft that they were mainly detecting, right?
Yeah, back then, when I first came on, it was straight cargo theft. It was the bad guys either stealing the tractor with the attached trailer laden with the freight, or they were coming in with a tractor or multiple tractors, depending what they were targeting. They crashed through the gates or an open, unsecured lot, hook up to the trailer or containers loaded with the freight that they desired, and they took off with it.
Yeah.
It has evolved a lot over the
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, it's very wild how, especially, I would say really ramped up since 2020, especially reporting, anyways, has gotten better since 2020. But I think 2020, 2022 were like the two biggest spikes in kind of the strategic cargo theft. But straight cargo theft has really always been a thing, kind of like you mentioned. So, how about we back up a little bit and you tell a little bit about yourself and kind of your background and what you're doing now and things like that?
Sure. So I got hired by the LA County Sheriff's Department in 1988. I graduated from the academy in January of 89. I worked the jails because the county sheriff starts their career in the jails, which is probably the best thing that happened to me because I was in the middle of all the criminal element. I learned from them as to which crimes they were committing and why and how. I took that out to the street. I was first assigned to patrol at Norwalk Sheriff Station, which is in Norwalk, California. I transferred to East LA Station in 94, and I stayed there until 2002, where I worked patrol. I was a FTO, a field training officer. I got promoted to detectives. I was handling robberies. That's where I learned about cargo theft. That's where I learned about cargo cats. And back then, you could get promoted to a special team on a phone call. And
Oh,
so the
really?
lieutenant that was assigned at Cargo Cats at the time was my watch commander when I spent 2 years as a training officer. And he knew that I was working as a detective. I was bilingual, and he offered me a spot on the Cargo Cats team. And I went over there in December of 2002. And the rest is history. I spent 19 years there until I retired in 21. And when I retired, I was planning to just ride off into the sunset, enjoy my retirement. My wife is retired. We both like to travel and do stuff. We still like each other. So, unfortunately, but fortunately,
Yeah.
one of my last sergeants saw me in action at one of the trainings that I did for a station. And he said I couldn't walk away and leave all of my experience on the table, that I was a necessary tool for the industry and I should consider staying. And so I did, and I'm enjoying it. It was hard learning the corporate side because it's totally different. Procrastinators, they're in a hurry to get the law enforcement guys involved and then slow to help assist law enforcement with the investigations. So it's been a learning experience to transfer over into the corporate side, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because whenever I talk to anybody like CHP, CTIP or the cats, all those guys, like they're always really big on, especially when I'm educating other people, like make sure you tell people to speak in normal terms, not just in logistics terms, because that is something like a whole nother world. Like we know in logistics, we know all that lingo, but nobody else outside of us knows what a reefer is or knows what even like what a BOL is or POD or, fictitious pickup, like none of that stuff really makes sense. Was that like a big learning curve for you or because you were part of the cats and already involved in it, it wasn't such a big leap?
Oh, gee, while I was on the team, when I first went over there, I had no clue what they were talking about. I didn't
Yeah.
know the difference between a container and a trailer, a reefer and a dry van, and slowly you learn that terminology. I think that's what made my transition a little bit easier. But like some of the internal stuff that goes on in the corporate world with the companies and some of that lingo, like house airway bills and other stuff like that,
Yeah.
technical paperwork that I didn't know that I needed because I usually dealt with the guy who had the trailer stolen from his yard, right?
Yeah.
And he'd give me the BOL, the vehicle information, and the video, and that's what I went based off of. Now that you have all of this, cargo theft through fraud, and I need the paperwork that, to show the chain of custody, what the product was, what the values are. It was an easy transition, but still terms and stuff that I had to learn. And I'm not ashamed to say it. I've got to learn every day.
Well, so do I. And I don't know there's so many different avenues of logistics. Like I mainly know like the over the road or even I'm just dipping into rail and stuff like that. But like I don't know anything about ocean or air there's so many different avenues of logistics. So it's a lot. So it's not just you. It's all of us.
Yeah,
We have shows like this to talk about all the things.
but I like it.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned like some of the hangups that you have, even dealing now in the private sector, is like having to deal with, they're wanting to file quickly, but then after that they kind of ghost you on that thing on things like that. So what are some big struggles that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis whenever you are getting those reports and having to handle cases? And how are some things that us as an industry, as far as educating, people who are submitting those reports, or how can we educate people to make your job easier?
Yeah, so when you're calling to report a cargo theft, whether it was through fraud or straight cargo theft, you should have all the information for the vehicles and or the shipment and be able to provide that at least for the first report that gets filed with the local patrol officer. So they have an idea what it was that was stolen, how it was stolen, descriptions of the product, the values, and to always have a 24/7 contact. These guys, as you know, when you were in California, they work around the clock. And
Hmm.
when they hit a cross dock in the middle of the night and they identify a shipment that they'd like to return to the rightful owner, it's hard to get a hold of somebody at midnight. So
Yeah.
what happens? The shipment goes to a tow company that's an official police garage where the trailer is stored that they provide, and it starts incurring charges, right? And before you know it, you owe the tow company quite a bit. So you're basically buying your stuff back, right?
Yeah.
So 24/7 contact, have all the paperwork, who the last witness was that saw that shipment, or who is able to identify the suspects that committed the crime, etc. That's all important, and that's necessary to file the first report. And then, as once the report gets filed, if the victim is lucky enough to have that case assigned to a cargo theft team, for example, the sheriff's department, LA County Sheriff's Department, has their own cargo theft team, the Cargo Cats. LAPD has their own cargo theft team. They're with the commercial crimes unit. And then the CHP is a state task force. But unless they write the first report, they don't take a handle on the investigation, right? So the locals will write the first report. And if it's an agency that does not have a dedicated cargo theft investigator, then it's going to go to their auto theft guy. And that guy's not going to know the difference between a cargo theft and a vehicle theft, right?
Interesting.
And a lot of guys, they just close out their case and they don't conduct any follow up, unfortunately, and the victim loses out. So I always say file that first report. And then through all of these conferences that we go to, all of these resources that we have, like the Western States Cargo Theft Association, CargoNet, Southwest Transportation Security Council, et cetera, contact the cargo theft task force or cargo theft unit that is in that area, notify them of the incident, and see if they're interested in taking over the case. If they're not, they're going to monitor it. They'll make contact with the handling detective, and then they'll team up to hopefully find the load and arrest and prosecute the guys responsible for the theft.
Yeah, I know the CHP guys were saying like they find a decent amount of stolen freight that they can't figure out who it belongs to. That happens way more often than them recovering it and giving it to somebody, probably. A lot of that stuff just sits there because there's nowhere to put it, right?
That's true. And law enforcement has to walk away, right?
Yeah.
So we always tell folks get that police report filed. If there's no police report, then it's not stolen. Law enforcement is not a repo agency. They're not
Hmm.
just going to go ahead and seize the freight and return it to you. they're going to get involved in a criminal investigation. They need that report for the probable cause, whether it's to knock on a door and get in, because some of these guys can talk themselves into Fort Knox, and or to write a search warrant so that they don't get turned away at the gate and they can go ahead and access the building or the yard to get their load back. But we need that first report.
Interesting. Yeah, I know, like you were just mentioning, like, being able to go in and there's like different hot spots really in California. Wouldn't you say that they're kinda known as, like, this type of facility takes things in versus somebody else that's a little bit more up to date on, or up to snuff, I should say, on not letting these bad actors in. So a lot of times you guys kinda know where to go, where to hit a lot sometimes, or is that not true?
Well, when you're the dedicated cargo theft investigator, you and your team know who the players are. Certain product was stolen by the use of a certain MO. They know which crew it was.
Yeah.
They know where they're parking their tractors and trailers with the stolen freight to let them cool off. They know which cross docks they're using, which warehouses they're using. And that all comes with experience. When I was on the team, and even now with cases that I handle as a PI, you read the notification and or you see a fake driver's license, and you already know who that crew is, and you know where to start looking.
And I know whenever we're at the Cargo Theft Summit, some of the things that, because I know I have that checklist from Kyle, and I'm actually posting that on my Fraud Girl newsletter or whatever, because I think it's hard to know exactly what you guys need, and especially like running scenarios where it's like knowing what you need in advance. This is your checklist, and this is what you get. One person's dedicated to getting all the information, but like even having a ID, like even if it's a fake ID, making sure the faces at least are the same, because then you guys could do facial recognition, and things like that.
That is correct. Even every small detail, even though you think it might not be important, it's important to law enforcement because they
Yeah.
either recognize that guy or they recognize a tractor and trailer. You know, there's companies out there like Genlogs and Trapezoid AI that track tractors and trailers by unit numbers, colors, logos, etc., and they share that information with those companies, and they can identify a crew, and they know that that crew is responsible for that specific theft, maybe a series of thefts, and then they can go after them.
Wild. It's so wild how you guys do. It's really cool. I mean, I'm like, I know that's like terrible to say, but like it's so interesting. Um, like some sheriffs and stuff that I talk to, they don't understand, I guess, how in depth you can get and how it could be like a real Fast and Furious car chase finding people. But like Kyle was telling me all the different stories. I guess what are some stories? Do you have any stories that you can share on kind of like the wildest pieces or wildest, recoveries you've made?
You know, there's so many stories, and I bump into the younger guys that know about my career, and they ask me if I remember this or remember that, and to them it's like exciting, and for me it was like it was exciting at the time. I kind of remember it, but I'm not too clear. You know,
Yeah.
look, I had a great career, you know, and it was a lot of fun. But when I got the call from the watch commander, who was a lieutenant at Cargo Cats, and I'm working robberies, that was a violent crime. I was going after gangsters. I was going after real bad guys who were robbing people at gunpoint, or they were kidnapping them and taking their stuff,
Wow.
etc. It was not a property crime, right? Like cargo theft is always looked at. So I didn't think I was going to fall in love with cargo theft, and I did. And when the lieutenant called me, he asked me if I wanted to go work for him. I said, "What's Cargo Cats?" I caught myself. I said, "You know what, sir? You want me to go work for you? I'm going to go work for you." And I went and I started working cases for him, and I fell in love with it. And it's a passion to help out the victims of cargo theft. And it's
Mhm.
a passion to teach the younger generation, the active guys, from my experience so that they're
Yeah.
more effective with their cases.
So cool. Since now you're on like the PI side, what is like the key difference between calling like law enforcement or like the dedicated task forces versus having a PI? Is it depending on like the value of the freight? Is it good to kind of have both? What do you recommend as far as when should we get like a PI involved?
So, great question, by the way. While I was a detective at Cargo Cats, you always had these retired cargo theft detectives who were now PIs, and they forget that they weren't law enforcement anymore. They would conduct their own investigation, and they do a great job, by the way. They get the video, they identify the suspects or the vehicles or where the stolen loot was, and then they cold call you. "Hey, we did this investigation. Drop whatever you're doing and come solve my case." It doesn't work that way. A
Yeah.
PI should call the detectives so that they know that you're part of the case. You're going to conduct a parallel investigation, and anything you need from me, because I have access to stuff from the corporate side that you don't have access to, I'll get it for you. And you work together.
Yeah.
You don't cross each other's investigations. The first report always has to get filed with the local police department, jurisdiction where the crime occurred. So with all of this theft through fraud that in the industry is called strategic theft,
Mhm.
location of occurrence is where the shipment was picked up. That shipment is being targeted from that shipping location through fraudulent means, and that's where the report should be filed. A lot of shipping companies, unfortunately, are reluctant to help because I think they're afraid to take the liability, right?
Yeah.
But if they did everything that they were supposed to do, confirm the information that was provided by the bad guys through the broker, it was already vetted through the vetting companies, they have, unless they cut corners, they really don't have liability. They're just reporting the incident. And that's where it has to be reported. Brokers, I have helped brokers file some of those reports because no one wants to help. Shipping department doesn't want to help. The local patrol guys don't understand the crime. So I've helped the brokers be the informant or the reporting party on those, but it's not the broker's freight.
Yeah.
And they really shouldn't be filing a stolen report because it's not their freight. It's not their product. So once you get the first report filed, then you call the cargo theft guys and you tell them, look, we filed this report. We know you're the cargo theft task force or the cargo theft team. Can you help out? And like I said earlier, if they're interested in taking that case from the local agency, they will. If they just want to monitor it, they will. If they walk into a warehouse and they see that product is sitting in a warehouse or in a truck yard, they'll already know, hey, that's Mr. Sanchez's load. Let's go ahead and recover it, get a copy of the report, and then we can do the recovery. So
Mhm.
yeah, there's certain steps that you have to take. Now you can always call the cargo theft task force first, and they're not taking your first report. You made the notification, they're aware of the incident, and that detective on that cargo theft team should say, call the local and file the first report, send me the report number. And that's
Yeah.
the way it works.
Because really, even filing through CargoNet, you would still need a police report for them to do anything. Even they can't just strictly go off a CargoNet report, right?
You are 100% correct. Making a notification to CargoNet or the Southwest Transportation Security Council or Western States is not filing a formal police report. You have to call the police to file a police report.
Yeah. Because at the end of the, even if they find the freight, they can't do anything unless they have the report. Even if they have
That's
a
correct.
report. Yeah.
Right.
I think a lot of people are scared to put a report in because what's interesting is on the private side, like I know I have made a report before and dealing with sometimes it'll be like a pickup in like, let's say Mississippi, but the load made it all the way to California and that's whenever whatever happened. Or maybe it was like a like tracking wise or tracking in California, but the pickup is where the theft actually happened. So then you file in Mississippi. But it's difficult to like explain dumb it down, I guess, to be like, half the page is the report here. Technically, you're not going to be able to do anything, but I need the report filed so I at least can take this here. Whenever we run into those hangups where it's like we're just dealing with somebody who has zero idea what we're talking about. And like you said, it's going to go to no man's land. Like if they have like the auto theft person and they're like, this property theft, this isn't even, auto stuff. What is a way that we can like simply get something put in and then kind of like what are next steps from there? Because I know that is extremely frustrating as a broker.
Well, it is frustrating, and I feel the frustration every time that I talk to a victim that can't get their locals to file the report.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of times let's say the load did end up in California
Yeah.
and you know somebody in California, whether it's, Final or Daughter or Diebel or one of the other famous guys in California, they can call that agency and say, listen, we need you to file the report for this person. We don't expect you to come to California to investigate the case. We'll handle it because we already know where the stuff is, or we have an inclination of who the thieves are, or whatever the case may be.
Mhm.
And so I've done that myself, even recently, even though I'm not a law enforcement. I'll call the local PD that's a little resistant and taking the report because they don't understand the crime. I explain it to them. They understand it. They give the folks a report number, and everybody else handles the investigation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think like kind of like I mentioned earlier, just making sure that we say as well, because I know Kyle and James and Brad, they've told me before, like you have to say this is a theft. Do not be like potentially a theft or it could be here or this and that, like being very direct on that and like specifically saying instead of being like, well, it didn't make delivery, just basically just be like, I know this was stolen. It should have been delivered here. It is not here. It is gone. I mean, like kind of saying things like that too will help.
Right. So in the case of straight cargo theft, it's plain and simple, black and white. They came in, they stole my trailer loaded with the freight. Here's the video, or here's the paperwork, whatever. In this theft through trick or device or fictitious means, you have to be able to explain your due diligence. We need to report a load that's stolen. This is why we know that it's stolen. We thought we hired this company. We contacted the original owners. They said they never got the load assigned. They checked their email. It seemed to be compromised, or their profile was stolen. Their identity was stolen. We found out that another driver, not the one that we thought we assigned, picked up the load. We spoke with him. He took it to a cross dock and he dropped it there. He sent us the paperwork. It's fraudulent. So you have to lay down the steps that you have taken to be able to say, look, we need to file a grand theft report and it's cargo, and this is why. And so along those lines, and it's been subject for a little bit now, the terminology that's being thrown around with the industry, right? For
Mhm.
example, strategic theft. Last Thursday, we had training with LAPD, Riverside Sheriffs, and CTIP, the Southern team, through CargoNet for their membership on how to correctly interact with law enforcement. And we went over those details, right? So you have a straight cargo theft, just say, I need to file a straight cargo theft. I have to report a theft of a shipment that was stolen through fraud. Each state has its own penal code section for those two types of thefts.
Okay.
Strategic theft is not anywhere in the penal code. So if you call and say, I need to file a strategic theft, they're going to look at you with the deer in the headlights look, and they're not going to know what to write.
Yeah.
Right. And you only have one chance to file that report. Because then
Right.
if you call back to try and file the same thing, they're going to say, make up your mind. Yeah, we're going to write the report, or no, we're not.
Yeah. Interesting. So prior to calling, is it best to kind of look up what each state classifies things as, or
Well, I think if, let's say I'm in Texas, I don't know what the penal code sections are in Texas, but I've
yeah.
handled some cases for some of my clients out of Texas. I've gone through the penal code because I'm an investigator, but I don't expect a shipper or a warehouse manager to study the penal code to be able to say, this is what I need to file. No, just
Gotcha.
keep it in simple terms. Hey, I need to report a cargo theft. Then when the patrol officer shows up, you explain, I've done A through Z. This is why we believe it's a theft and not a contractual disagreement or a breach of contract. It's a theft. And they should be able to understand that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, part of a lot of this, the whole problem, I guess, with what we're just talking about right now is making sure that officers are trained throughout the US. And I know that's like a kind of something everybody in logistics is screaming from the rooftop, like, please help our officers get trained on things. Obviously, that a lot of that's funding and getting the voices heard and government wise to know all of these things. I guess, do you have any ideas on things that like the average American could do to try to get the word out more, or like what are some things that we can do as an industry to help officers?
So if you're reporting a theft, you keep it in simple terms, like I said
Mhm.
earlier. The training part, that's hard. Every department, every major department that does have a cargo theft task force, you got 5 or 6 guys on a team, and those guys try to go out and teach or train their patrol guys at different stations, but they get swamped with cases.
Right.
It was embarrassing to me about 2 years ago, probably three. One of my clients that had started getting hit with these thefts through fraudulent paperwork, she went to the station, which was a sheriff's station in Santa Clarita, and she was having a hard time getting a report filed. They didn't understand the crime. And she just asked, please write the first report. You can call Cargo Cats. They'll go ahead and handle the case for you because it's a cargo theft. And the deputy was, what's Cargo Cats?
Mm.
They're your department team.
Yeah.
We didn't even know we had a cargo cats, right? Because you have a small team, and at that time there was probably 2 to 3 detectives. They
Yeah.
are now, I think, at 6 to 8 with a sergeant to get the word out. And so I do. Our sheriff's department does training twice a year. It's an auto theft class, but they have me go in and do the 2-hour segment on cargo theft. And you have 25 officers there from different departments. Let's say the second class, another 25. That's 50 officers that I'm trying to teach, and I give them the literature. I give them the printouts for the penal codes that apply to those types of crimes and how to enter the trailers or the containers and chassis carriers into the system. But it's limited to 50 guys out of
Right.
18,000 deputies that we have in our department.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
And they don't share the info, or, yeah, okay, it's another 3-day class. And so it's limited to who it gets to. Right. So luckily, with through CargoNet and all the conferences that we go to, I try to invite as many of the patrol guys to go to these trainings. CargoNet offers training to law enforcement. I've helped them with Long Beach PD. They did one recently with Whittier PD. They've done Chino, California PD. They do their own training for law enforcement, actually nationwide, explain to them the elements of cargo theft and how to handle a report of that nature so that it's documented appropriately.
Interesting. I did not know that they did that. CargoNet does a lot for the whole industry. I think it's pretty amazing what all they do and how involved they are, and they really do find a lot of stolen shipments too. I think it's like a misconception where it's like, "Oh, I'm going to submit it and I'm never going to see it again." Even if you don't, it does still help build a case for officers to tie multiple events to like one person.
Right. And they were a godsend when I first met CargoNet. They came down to our offices. At the time, we were in Rancho Dominguez, and they introduced themselves to us. I knew Keith Lewis because I met him in 4 at the Miami-Dade Cargo Theft Conference, and we've become friends since then. But they came out probably 15 years ago, introduced themselves to us. At that time, we had our own crime analyst assigned to our own office, our own team. That's all she did.
Mm.
And when she would hear us talking in the office about a certain theft and she'd catch the MO, she'd reach into her drawer and say, I think I know who your crew is. Here you go.
Oh,
Right. That's
interesting.
how awesome she was.
Yeah.
She retired. Right. And then since then, unfortunately, we had other analysts that had other collaterals. Right. And so they have to share their work. They weren't in our office. So they lose touch with what cargo theft is. They just know what you're trying to tell them to work up, and you lose a lot in that translation,
Hmm.
right? So CargoNet came in right as Diane was retiring, and wow, the service that they provide is out of this world.
Yeah.
Even though they're not official reports, their database, I could call them, hey, I'm in a warehouse. I got a load of appliances with the brand, the model. They inquire in their system. Hey, we think we got your victim. And they filed that report with San Bernardino PD. You call them, hey, yeah, send us a report. We recover the load. That's how valuable CargoNet is.
Yeah. Another thing too we talked about at the Cargo Theft Summit, and I don't think that this is brought up enough, is that a lot of these bad actors are this is not the only crime that they're committing. Typically they're involved in multiple different they're not just like I'm only a bad guy because I still cargo freight. They're doing a lot of other activities. In your history of making arrests and things like that, did you notice that there's typically in like I know the Armenian gang, whenever they got them for like sex trafficking and like I think like credit card fraud and something else too. Is it typically like they're involved in like these certain categories, or is it like all over the map, or what are some things I guess that you've seen?
Most cargo thieves have some other scam going on, whether it's
Yeah.
dope or running guns, doing the human trafficking. It all depends on what ethnicity they are, whether they're Mexican or Indian or Armenian. They all have different objectives. They all work closely together. It's hard to infiltrate them because they all come from the same regions and from their country. They move into the same neighborhoods and they all work together and they got each other's back.
Yeah.
But when I first got on the team, so you think about 9/11/01, right? I got on in
Mhm.
2002. The big thing was cargo theft, funds, terrorism. And
Yeah.
we had, through the Patriot Act at the time, all the probable cause in the world to stop a trailer or a container and get inside it to find out what was in it.
Mm.
I don't know if the detectives practice that anymore, but it funds terrorism. It funds dope running. It funds illegal arms. It funds all kinds of different things because it's a crime where it's high reward and low risk, and it's easy to commit. They got no overhead, so
Yeah.
everything that they sell for pennies on the dollar is a profit for them. And
Right.
if they get caught, they've already broken up the shipments. They got them hiding in different spots. Okay, so you caught me with a third of the load. I still got 2/3 of the load to sell, right?
Exactly.
And they're not going to tell you where it's at.
Yeah. That's wild. Yeah, I think that brings up like a really good point on the really like the buyers that okay, let me back things up. So, like my girlfriend, she was like, "Oh, I just bought this Lululemon whatever for this price and I know it was really Lululemon because of this and this." I'm like, that's probably like 99% cargo theft, right?" I'm like, "Quit buying from this, please. Like you are the problem." But it's
Yeah.
hard to turn as a buyer, it's hard to turn that type of stuff down. But they're really moving the shipments like everywhere. And then like I didn't realize the amount of volume that was going overseas too, especially like electronics because they have the codes. I didn't realize all of that was like it was such a prominent thing. I guess I thought a lot of it was staying here. Whenever you guys made recoveries, did you guys see? I mean, I guess you kind of found things everywhere, right?
We had what?
You had whenever you made recoveries, it wasn't just like at a warehouse with all the things. It was like at a storefront, or it was online, or it was at the port.
Oh
Or
yeah, yeah. We recovered loads at public storage facilities. We recovered loads at warehouses. We recovered them in homes that they were using as warehouses. We found them in other trailers that they were using as storage in dirt lots,
Mm,
storefronts, like you said. They store stolen cargo everywhere and anywhere that it fits. I remember an investigation out of Utah on some hair care products that we were going after. And when we walked in the lady's house, there was one chair, one television, and there was no furniture in the house. It was a 3 bedroom or 4 bedroom home, including the garage, full of stolen cargo. And they
wow,
had the one chair and the television for the guy that was keeping an eye on the product.
that's crazy.
These guys, they're sophisticated. They know what they're doing.
That's wild. What would you say as far as I guess there's you wouldn't really know exact percentage that goes overseas, but would you say a good amount of it is shipped overseas, like back on ships or?
A good amount does. And, I watched when you interviewed Scott Cornell,
Mhm.
and he was correct in how they launder the stolen product to put it on a container that goes overseas. The bad guys know how to layer themselves up to separate themselves from the stolen product or the crime. And that stuff goes overseas. With California being so close to the Mexican border,
Yeah.
it gets driven right into onto the Mexico side, and the shipments disappear. I know the CHP has a international liaison, a Mexican liaison, and they work closely with authorities in Mexico, and they have recovered a lot of stolen product
Hmm.
in Mexico, a product that was stolen in California.
Yeah. 'Cause I think that's so I used to haul copper, and that was like the number one thing is whenever there was rerouting and cross docking and stuff like that, it always was to get it across the border. Always, always, always. That was like where it always ended up. Because a lot of times you can't really copper isn't like an easy thing to flip on the street or whatever. Like there's certain people that buy that or
That's correct.
or to buy that from. So it's yeah, some of the products is like it's very strategic on where they end up heading and things like that.
The bad guys already know what they're doing. Just like recently with all of these fictitious pickups and thefts through fraud, some of these guys don't even, the bad guys don't repost the loads that they're intending to steal on a public load board. They're just calling the guys that have already moved loads for them because they know that they can count on them, that they're going to keep their mouth shut and take it from where they want it, from where they picked it up to where they want it to go. So they bypass the public load boards in some cases, and they're using the guys that they trust. When I talk to victims of that type of crime, where a driver that initially says, "Hey, I only did as I was instructed." Well,
Yeah.
listen, you're moving. Whenever this guy hires you, that shipment is most likely stolen. So you need to cut it out, call law enforcement, or don't work for that guy, or you're going to get into trouble. And several guys continue doing it. But after the third or fourth time of saying, "Hey, I just did what as I was instructed," they're getting arrested. They're being prosecuted.
Good. I was wondering at what point is it where it also falls back on the driver? Because I think a lot of times, even with this whole email compromise, quote unquote, email compromise all the time, there's no way this is happening as often as we are seeing it. I really think I'm like big on. I think a lot of these carriers are in on it and getting like even like a small amount because it's at the end of the day, like insurance companies won't pay out on it. You're not going to get charged for it if you say it wasn't me. And even, like, setting up the rule where it goes into your deleted folder and, like, that being a big thing. It's like you can easily lie your way out of saying that it wasn't me, and then, people really look the other way and they don't investigate a lot further from what I've seen.
Yeah, I mean, but it does happen.
It does, yeah.
I recently had a case where a gentleman's carrier name was used to steal a very expensive shipment, and he started getting calls. I interviewed him a few days after the theft that I was investigating. He said he had received several calls inquiring the whereabouts of the shipments assigned to him or his company, and we've been emailing with your company email. Yes, my company email, but it wasn't us. I
Yeah.
don't have those conversations in my email. He saw that his trash bin had been emptied, and he called the company that does his email domain. They restored his email, and in the restored email, he found the conversations that for the negotiations of those 3 or 4 loads that the people were calling him on,
Mm.
and he was able to provide that information to law enforcement so that hopefully they could follow up and identify exactly who it was. How did they get into his email? He recalls that he saw a load on a public load board. He bid on it. Whoever was offering that assignment sent him a link to onboard him. When he clicked on the link, there was nothing there.
Mm,
That's how they fished his access to his email. And
mm,
that's the only incident he can think of. So it does happen. Now, as far as the drivers, if you are an independent owner operator that's being manipulated in a fraud scheme, you're going to show your real driver's license. You're going to have your same license plates assigned to your vehicle with a tractor trailer that's going to match up with the VIN. You're not going to try and conceal your identity.
right.
They may put a temporary placard on there because even though the bad guys are using placards to steal loads, they do, unfortunately, do that in the industry on the legitimate side. And it's accepted. It's an accepted practice by shipping locations because they have always done it that way, right? The guy that you need to look out for is the guy who comes in with cold plates, the guy that comes in with a tractor that has the original unit numbers covered, has a temporary placard on it, or no license plates or zip tied license
Yeah,
plates,
I
et
was gonna
cetera,
say
et cetera. All
side.
the red flags, right?
Yeah.
Those are the guys that are most likely complicit in the theft. And those are the guys that should be held accountable because they should know better if they're participating in the theft. And a lot of them show up with a fake ID, whether it's New York State or California driver's license with their image on it, but it's not their information. So you're going to tell me that guy doesn't know he's up to no good? He does, and that guy should be prosecuted.
Now I know a lot of I spoke with FMCSA, like their DOT division or whatever, and they were telling me that one of the scanners that a lot of shippers use that scans the CDLs, they actually don't validate that it's like a legitimate like ID at all. How is like other than like very obvious fake IDs, what would be would you ask them, "Hey, what's your address?" or "What's your," like how would I guess you spot like a fake ID?
Yeah, so I mean, you can ask them for them to give you the information that's on that driver's license, right? They're not. Some guys are slick, right? Just like they study, they memorize the number, they memorize the identity that they are portraying to be, and those are the good guys. But most guys aren't gonna remember. They're not gonna
Right.
remember their address on that fake ID or driver's license or the birth date. But the other thing that you have to look out for, because some of these fake IDs are really good and they are fooling the scanners,
Yeah.
unfortunately, because the quality is that good. Ask the guy for the rate con. Ask the person, where's the shipment supposed to be going? Um, there's certain questions that you can ask if they hesitate, or I need to call, or here's the paperwork and it doesn't match up. You know that they're most likely trying to steal that load, whether they know about it or they don't. I've
Mhm.
had cases where um, independent owner operator says, "Yeah, I picked up that load. It's his legit driver's license, legit phone number. I was told to drop it off at, in South Central." And they send me the paperwork and it looks like the legit Raycon, but it's a totally different misdirected address.
Right.
They use the blind shipment terminology with these drivers and they accept the load and they deliver it as instructed. They're going to have all of that paperwork. In one specific case, I contacted the company who allegedly issued this Raycon. The gentleman out of Colorado said, "Look, I've had several phone calls come my way asking for shipments. I don't do shipping. I don't do transportation. I'm not in the transportation industry.
Oh,
Someone stole my ID, my identity, and they created a company under my identity to make it look like I was the owner, and it wasn't
wow.
me. I've already filed a report for the identity theft." So, talking about blind
Yeah.
shipments
Glad you brought that up.
do exist in the industry, right?
Which why
In
have we not come up
cases,
with a better solution for that is my question.
I
Like, there's
know,
gotta be
but
a better way.
yeah, but with my investigations, what I've learned is in a blind shipment, the destination never changes. What they're
Mhm.
doing is they're covering up where the load is being picked up from. That way, the vendor doesn't get cut out of the
Right.
business that he is in offering that product,
Yeah.
right? So these drivers that say, "I picked it up as a blind shipment," well, you should have still delivered it to the correct address, not some shady address in a dead end where they're transporting into some box trucks,
Yeah,
right?
to a U-Haul. Well, and
Yeah,
now there is such thing as a double blind shipment where it's the wrong shipper and the wrong receiver, but that's like that is one that's like I don't understand why that's a thing at all. If anything, there should be a cross stocking and then have a different shipper and receiver again. I mean, there's too much cargo theft and fraud that's going on, and that's how they really have found our loopholes is blind shipment is like the number one way that they get good drivers to just go wherever they want to because they can just say it's a blind shipment and the driver's like okay. So
that's true.
yeah, I think you're right. At the end of the day, the delivery should always match the VOLs always. And if it is like a double blind, well, then there should be some cross stocking, like, and then that needs to be done legitimately and completely upfront with the driver. The driver needs to understand that this is how this is happening. You can confirm with this person or whatever. There's got to be a way to confirm it as a driver because I think it's going to get to the point where because a lot of times, let's say like this happens to you as a driver, and then you get a freight guard put on you, and then your
Right.
whole patient gets ruined, you have to go out of business. There is a little bit of responsibility back on a carrier where when there is something like that, like you did not do any due diligence, whereas a broker or a shipper has to do their due diligence. Like now they're trying to hold shippers accountable for like English proficiency and all sorts of things.
Right.
It still is some due diligence that carriers need to do on their side to prevent that. Or I do think they should be held responsible for it, and at least in some capacity.
No, and you're right. And those freight guards destroy your, if you're a
Mhm.
good guy, destroys your reputation. It's hard for you to get your reputation back and
Yeah.
get back in the business. Look, I mean, there's so much that's going on. It's unbelievable. We've had more and more independent owner operators in recent times that notice these are the legit guys. Something's not right. I've been misdirected or redirected 2 or 3 times. Now I'm in a dead end and they take off. They call the shipper, what's going on here? Why am I here? And they give up the information as to what they were being made to do. And
Yeah.
they'll protect that load, right? Or they'll start filming, they'll start videotaping, they'll start taking pictures of the guys that they're doing the transload with.
Right.
And sometimes that lends you a lead, sometimes it doesn't, but it's usually a box truck with a cold plate. The identifiers are covered up and it's hard to identify those guys once they make off with the load.
Mhm.
But more and more independent operators are catching on to how they're being manipulated. In the industry, as you well know, there's very strict requirements through FMCSA or the DOT, the Code of Federal Regulations, as to, for example, placarding and or the transfer of a business. And unfortunately, I've learned that the industry doesn't educate themselves as to those requirements,
Right.
and they go based on the old philosophy, but we've always done it that way.
Yeah.
Or, hey, yeah, I think something's shady, but if it once it pulls away from our dock, it's not our responsibility.
Right.
Or worse, yeah, there's insurance for it anyway. If it gets stolen, we're covered.
Yeah.
Right? Some companies have a low threshold to turn the driver away if they suspect something. Other companies have a threshold of $250,000. For me, that would bankrupt me. But
Yeah.
for some of these companies, they hold that high threshold. And even if they recognize red flags, they still load up a guy trying to steal their load. You and I can't go to the bank without an ID, give the bank teller an account and say, hey, I'd like $20. They'll laugh
Yeah.
you out of there. In
Right.
the industry, you're giving up millions of dollars in freight with a guy without an ID, without any verification, without any confirmation that this information is correct. And now you're running around like a chicken without a head trying to get that load back. You know, one upsetting thing for me is that I've had broker clients that are in denial once a shipment gets misdirected. And they
Yeah.
try negotiating with the bad guys. And let's say they assigned 3 shipments to suspects who are intending to steal their loads. Well, we negotiated and got 2 loads back. What was the condition of those loads? And what was the product? Well, it was paper products and the boxes were pilfered. Okay, and which one did they keep? The one with the electronics. You guys should have filed a report as soon as you
Yeah.
recognize you're being victimized instead of hemming and hawing because you don't want to file a report. And you probably could have gotten all 3 loads back.
Right.
Right. So that denial and that hesitation to file a report in a timely manner only lessens your chances of getting your shipment back.
For sure. I'm glad you brought that up. I think also the like, you know how it's like, we do not negotiate with terrorists or whatever, whoever said that. I think that needs to be the mindset too. Like, once you give money, let's say, like for those paper products, once you give money to the bad guys that held something hostage and they want money, they know they can go right back after you because they know you'll ante up. So it's like
Right.
getting on their hit list more and more, and they're going to keep watching all the shipments that you're posting on the public load boards and all that type of stuff. So it's a lot of times I feel, I mean, I'm not sure if this is like a bajillion% true or not, but I feel like it's better just to, like you said, cooperate with law enforcement, try to get a reports filed, work with them to try to maybe figure out like a, almost like a, like you see in the movies, like the kidnapping, right? Like set up a sting operation so that they can try to grab the shipment or grab the bad guy without having to actually fork out all this money. Like, why not? I don't understand why that's such like a thing. We're not dealing with like a human life. This is cargo. Like, let's get the law
Right.
enforcement involved. It's a little bit easier to, like, make a sting operation. And a lot of times they just take your money and then they're gone. Like they're not even,
Exactly.
they don't care. Like
Exactly.
most of the time, that's what happens.
Yeah. So instead of letting them extort you for money, because you're not going to get that money back and you're not going to get the shipment back most times, consider what your exposure is on the claim.
Yeah.
Is it a $100,000 load of paper products if they cost that much, and you're going to pay a $5,000 or $10,000 deductible, or are you going to give these guys 20,000 to try to get that load back? I mean, what makes more sense? Just tell the guys, hey, keep the load, and I'm going to file my claim. I'm going to file a report, and hopefully law enforcement catches you.
Yeah.
Right. So those are things that you need to consider.
Yeah. Gosh, I could pick your brain for hours, literally
I'm
hours.
telling you, I can talk about this stuff forever and a day.
I know, me too. I love it. I hate that I love it, but I love it because I just there's so much little things that people can do that would make a big difference in the whole industry if we all collaborated and everybody was educated and everybody knew all the things. I guess to kind of wrap everything up,
Well,
what is
before we do wrap it up, with that said, and I'll keep it short, I think you met JJ Copeland from Southwest Transportation. You haven't met
nope,
him?
nope.
He
You
was
need to
in
introduce me.
Monrovia.
Yeah,
Talk about a legend. This
really.
guy he is a retired Dallas police officer. He got into cargo theft investigations. He's older than dirt, but he's still very healthy and sharp.
Yeah.
Said exactly what you just said. You really don't have to invest a lot of money in security. Set up your strict protocols and don't shy away from them.
Right.
And if you get victimized, you have to share that information with your other brothers in the industry because they're going to be next, right? And so the days of keeping secrets that you guys were victimized in a cargo theft and your brand is going to get, tarnished, those days are gone.
I agree.
You have to share the information. And we talked about the databases and notification companies that are out there. You need to be able to share all that information so that we at least slow it down,
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
As you know, the bad guys are buying the motor carrier numbers that have already been vetted. They have
Hmm.
a good reputable history. No one knows that the MC number was sold 3 months ago, 6 months ago, and all of a sudden it comes up and you've done business with them before.
Yeah,
They've already been vetted through the vetting company. They've already been vetted through your brokerage company. You never had any issues. But where have they been the last 3 months? Where
yeah.
have they been the last 6 months? Worse, I've had victims. Oh, yeah, well, last time we did business with them was a year ago. And you have to revet those companies. Yeah, they have a reputable history, but guess what? The bad guys just bought that MC number and now they're misusing it.
Yeah, prime pickings. So,
Yeah.
yeah, my, not to I don't wanna plug my product at all, but I worked heavily with our development team and with other compliance, really, like, the best compliance people that I know in the industry, on a broker's side, like, I mean, I spent hours upon hours sitting with them, like, "What do you guys do differently where you do not have," like, they don't have cargo theft, they ship tons and tons and tons of shipments. They're fast paced, they're not slowing down. I'm like, "What do you guys do differently? It doesn't make sense." And that's exactly what they do differently is they revet every, sometimes it's 3 months, 6 months. To me, I think over
Yeah.
6 months is too long, but having something where you have that system in place. So, because of that, part of what we did at My Care Portal, which I think you even, looked at my post on that, was we're completely changing the way our vetting platform is to make that be automated because at the end of the day, I think that is the only way to really know who you're working with is by checking it literally every single time. And unless if you like know this guy, like I have had it where I know the drivers well enough where like I sit with them and at dinner and I've done those type of things with them. Like unless you know the guys like that, like you should be re-looking at them. And even that, carrier can still sell and the same guy that you ate dinner with is retired off at a beach somewhere because he got paid, whatever amount. I mean, that is happening left and right. It's just crazy.
You're right. Look, in the past, the transportation industry was personal,
Yeah.
right? Personal relationships. You develop that rapport. You can trust these guys, and those are the guys you're giving them loads to. Unfortunately, during COVID, everyone learned they can use the internet and online, and you lose that personal relationship.
Hmm.
I talked to a victim yesterday from Rhode Island. No, I'm sorry. And he talked about the same thing.
Yeah.
Now with all of this technology and making it easier to assign loads through a computer, it totally has blown out those past relationships that we've had where you could trust people and you can't trust anyone anymore.
No. And even vetting platforms honestly are like they're like a necessary evil. I think people rely way too heavily on vetting platforms and they do not do anything on their own. Like a simple phone call to the FMCSA phone number or a simple
Yeah,
phone call here or like just notifying your shipper just because they look green and they look great does not mean like you should not tell your shipper, "Hey, look for this truck." Especially when
right.
you get the whole like, "Hey, I have a new driver on the load." That should be like spidey senses alert a bajillion percent. Like there's
You're right.
something is weird about it.
Yep. Yeah, and look, when these fraud schemes first started coming out, like in 2007, 2008, I would tell people, run the address for the company the guy says he's with. It
Yeah.
might be an empty lot. It might be a vacant house. Don't call the number that he told you to call to negotiate with him because he's on the road.
Yeah.
That's his burner phone.
Exactly.
Call the number that you've always talked to people with or on because that's going to be the right number. And
Right.
they're going to tell you, we don't know who that guy is. So right around 2007, 2008 is when this scheme started happening, and they've evolved, right?
Yeah.
A lot. They were doing them themselves, disguising their vehicles. They were stealing the loads themselves. They started getting identified. They started going to jail. They started hiring the innocent independent owner operators. Then they started hiring independent owner operators and asking them to cold plate their vehicles, use this placard, introduce yourself, or check in as this company.
Yeah.
Now they started doing what they're doing, the MC numbers. They're just flat out stealing the loads as opposed to trying to even hide who they are. These
Right.
guys are out of control.
Yeah, totally. And like we've said probably a bajillion times, it is very high reward, very low risk. I mean,
Yep.
what's so frustrating, I know for like all the law enforcement officers that I know is how often they're making arrests and then they see them right back out there again. I mean, it's
Yeah.
till we get that part fixed, which I'm praying this new bill that goes through the Corco one. Um,
Right.
I'm praying that that makes a difference. I mean, I actually just met with CNN and was telling them about like rail theft, which we need to do it. We need to do a whole nother episode. By the way, I have so many more things to
Right.
talk about. But
We will.
yeah, I think even like getting the word out on that is huge because we have to at the end of the day we got to put a band-aid on this thing to make it where we can stop the bleeding and then figure out a different way figure out a different way of making like the holes in our system in logistics like the blind shipments. Like let's come up with a better way of doing this, people. Like we got to be able to do that, but nobody can focus on that right now because everybody's just like in like war zone, right? We're in
Yeah.
defense, we are not in offense. So let's stop the bleeding and let's get on the offensive mode.
Yeah. But listen, I love what you're doing. I love what Dale Prax is doing.
Yeah.
TIA going to Congress and fighting the fight. You guys, it's necessary.
Yeah,
So
I
my
agree.
hat is off to you guys. And I'm here to help anytime you guys need something.
Awesome. Well, how can everybody reach you whenever they have hopefully nobody ever has a stolen load, but whenever they do, how can they reach you and get your help on things?
They can call me directly or email me. My phone number is area code 626-251-7478. I answer my phone around the clock on the holidays, on the weekends, etc. And I'll help connect you with the right people. Or you can shoot me an email at info@preventcargotheft.com.
What a brilliant email address, by the way. It's very to the point. I love it.
I wish I could take the credit for that, but I have a very good friend that helped me create that domain. He
Yeah.
picked my brain when I was starting my company. Says, "How about this? Man, that's perfect." And he
Yeah.
created my logo.
Yeah, I love
A
your logos.
very good friend. Thank you.
Very cool. Well, thanks so much. We're doing a round two of this for sure. I have so many more questions. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
And thank you, Danielle, and thank you for rescheduling. I was under the weather, and I'm glad we finally got it going.
That's what we're here for. Awesome. Well, thanks so
Sounds
much.
good.
Bye,
Take
everybody.
care. Be safe. Bye bye.